Hello and welcome to Renaissance Minis. I'm going to be making another room box. This is the castle room box and I want to do it the exact same size as I did this one because I'm going to stand back here in a minute and I'm going to show you that it's inside this cube piece of furniture here. So I want to make a room box for that middle section right here. The cube is 11 by 11 and I want to make this so that I can take it out and put it on top of another piece of furniture or something in my room and make it kind of look like a storefront. So I don't want to make it just open like I did the other room box. So I want to put some detail on it so it looks like a storefront. That way if I decide to put it somewhere else in my room, I can enjoy it and it won't look just like a box on the furniture. So these are the measurements I have so far. This is the base piece, and the base piece is measuring 10 1/8 by 11 deep. So as the piece of furniture is an 11 by 11 perfect square, I'm giving myself a little bit more room on the sides, and the reason I'm doing that is because I'm putting the walls on. So these are 1/4 inch foam board and I'm putting these here, so I have to account for that extra on both sides. This is 10 1/8 by 11 and the sides are, let me see if I can, okay. I have to mark them in the up position so I know what's up so I don't accidentally glue it on the wrong direction. And these are 11 inches wide by 10 3/4 tall. So two pieces, 11 inches wide by 10 3/4 tall. And the base piece is 10 1/8 by 11 deep. And then this is going to be the, I guess you could call it the roof or ceiling. And this should match the other piece. I like to attach my foam board on the outside of the base so that it has more stability, because you could attach it on top but it will be wobbly. So I like to attach it. I do all my houses this way. That's why I use the 1/2 inch foam board on the bottom. Now if you don't have 1/2 inch foam board, you can certainly double up 2/4 pieces and make it that thickness. For the 1/4 inch side foam board pieces, I'm using Walmart foam board. Pen and Gear foam board. Walmart foam board and Target foam board are a little bit more sturdier and firmer than Dollar Tree foam board. The correct glue to use for the wallpaper is a glue stick. You could use other wet glue, but it will warp the surface of the foam board. All right. Let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to make the back part later. After I've glued all my sides on, then I'll tip it on and put it on top of a piece of foam board and cut the back perfectly. I want to wait for that part. The last projects, I have made my own floor with the wood sticks and all of that. And I just want to go with some paper flooring in this case. Even though it's out of scale, the bricks are like 1/6 scale, I would say. I'm going to use it anyway because I do like the overall look. And I also don't want to do all the work. I'm leaving a 1/2 inch allowance on the bottom so that when I hot glue it to the base, the paper won't be on top. It'll be foam board to foam board, and the reason for that is the paper could come loose because the glue stick is not a fantastic bond. It's a good bond, but it's not for structure. So I like to glue foam board directly to foam board, so I'm leaving that allowance at the bottom. Now I'm doing this on the floor. I could measure to cut the back piece, but I prefer putting the two sides together and then cutting it, because there could be some discrepancies in the measurements, and so I want a really clean, good fit, and I find it best to get it when I already have the two sides on, and then I can place them on a piece of foam board and get a very accurate fitting piece. All right, so here's the basic box and it's ready to go. Now I'm going to be working on the front, and I'm deciding where the windows go, how far up they go. This takes a lot of time, this part. I edited it out, a lot of material where I'm constantly checking, double checking, rechecking, looking at the picture, going back, checking again, making sure that I make allowances for everything for the height, make sure that it's half scale, and I'm always checking scales and to make sure the doors are correct and the size of the windows are correct. So if you spend a lot of time on that, just know that I do too. So I'm going to cut out these frames here very carefully. There's not going to be much left on either side, so there's going to be a lot of weak points there, but that will firm up when I glue the chipboard on. Now I made the purple ones, they're templates. I decided to make some. I didn't do this last time, which was a mistake, because I like to keep the templates for another build. Let's say I really like how this room box comes out and I want to duplicate the same one again. Now I have not only do I have all the measurements now, but I have the templates to hand, so super easy. Now I'm going to cut an angle on a bias here into the foam board, and this is going to help those two front pieces to match up and marry up real nice and smooth and not leave a big space. So I'm coming in with the blade on a bias and just taking out some of that foam. And see how they come together? They fit so much closer and so much tighter that way. And now I'm measuring the base angle so that I can cut a top piece that you'll see me use later. right, now it's time to focus on the windows and getting the acrylic put in. I'm using ultra thin acrylic, and I lined the windows out, as you can see there, with some cardstock. And I acquired this super thin acrylic from pictures at the Dollar Tree. They have some framed floral wall art, and it just so happens it had the most wonderful acrylic. And later on in this video, you'll see me use the back part of the picture that I got at the Dollar Tree. So the acrylics on the front, and they're mounted on what I like to call like a pressed board. And that press board works really good for making furniture and doing all kinds of things. And you'll see me cut some backing for the pictures that I hang on the wall out of that press board. So I upcycle that as well. And I'm able to use almost everything from those Dollar Tree pictures. And now I'm just putting a little bit of glue. You don't want to put too much because it'll ooze out the side. So I'm kind of tacking the top and the bottom. Because I'm going to be placing frames over this acrylic to seal the deal. And then it'll also frame out the windows at the same time. So it'll kind of have a double purpose. Just sizing everything up here, making sure it fits really well and doesn't exceed the edges, because all of these pieces have to come together in the end when I glue them all together. All right, so now we're on the inside, and I'm looking at spacing and how big the bench should be and how much room I have and where the bar should be, the coffee bar, and all of that. So once I've decided on the sides, I'm gluing on the base now of the counter. I decided to do it all in one piece. That made sense to me. Instead of doing pieces, just make the whole piece one piece. It's going to look much better on the top because I'm going to end up covering this entire thing with chipboard and painting it with the Craft Smart Burnt Umber to make it look like wood. I like to use hot glue, and you'll see me use hot glue a lot, but feel free to use whatever glue you like. If you prefer tacky glue and you can't stand hot glue, then use tacky glue. It's just as good. It just takes a long time to dry, and I work pretty quickly, so I prefer the hot glue. And I don't live in a humid climate like Florida where I have to worry about my projects melting or coming apart. That's another thing you have to think about. So I'm just finishing up the edges here. And then I'm going to start covering everything with this chipboard. Now this chipboard isn't recycled chipboard. I bought this at Michael's Crafts in the section where they sell the do-it-yourself cards. And the reason why I like to use it is because if I use different recycled chipboard, they all paint differently. The paint comes out lighter on some than the others. And because I want this all to look the same, that's why I'm not using recycled at the moment. And I just covering this piece here with cardstock, colored cardstock. These staples make the perfect door handles. And because they're sharp and pointy, I pre-pop holes with my little ice pick you see there, and then I just push them in. It's super easy. All right, so the bar's done, and I think it's time for paint now. Taking the cabinets out, I don't glue the cabinet face in till the very end. In fact, no, actually I don't glue it in at all. It's held in with tension. I'll just leave it that way. Now I'm doing a wipe method here. Instead of watering down the paint, because the chipboard will degrade if I put too much liquid on it. So I'm doing a wipe method. This makes it look like the grain in the wood. And so I'm brushing in the direction of the faux grain, if you will, just to make it look like wood, and it comes out beautiful. I'm so happy with this method. It's worked so well on almost every single thing I've made and all the furniture. Just going to add a few details here to the front of the counter. And then I'm going to finish it off with some paint, and then I'm going to come back in with some Mod Podge. And I end up using the matte Mod Podge because it still has a tiny bit of a sheen. I find that the satin is still a little too glossy, and I don't want it to look really glossy. And I end up Mod Podging this with the satin, and the result was that it turned the cardstock into paint. It looks like I painted it because the Mod Podge puts these streaks into it, and not only does it seal the deal and keep everything together, it and gives it a nice coating, it also makes it appear like you painted it. So that was an unexpected surprise. And then I'm using matte here on the top through the whole thing. I'm going to do it all in matte. That just seals it real nice. And now if you get too much Mod Podge on it, it will start to warp the chipboard. So you have to use discretion, and I end up having to go back on the countertop, and it starts kind of curling and lifting, and I have to go back and kind of re-glue the edges a little bit later on, so just be aware of that. Too much moisture on chipboard will make it curl and do funny things, so I just have to figure out, you know, how much to put on. I found this corduroy at the thrift store. It was an Eddie Bauer shirt, and I cut it up, and it was the perfect color for this cafe, so it worked really well. Since you can't go to Joann's Crafts and buy fabric anymore because they closed our Joann's Crafts. So I go to the thrift store. When I need fabric, I go there and I pick out fabric, use clothes, and just reuse the clothes. All right, so I made a little sign here on my computer, and I think it is in the font size of 8, so small enough for the half scale. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of black, put it on a piece of black cardstock, and then later on then I cut some chipboard to frame it, and I used that ultra thin acrylic with it as well to make a sign. Unfortunately, the chipboard after I got the layer of Mod Podge on top of it kind of started warping a little bit, so I'm thinking about taking down the sign and remounting it on some of that firmer board to keep it from bending. And I'm doing the wipe method here. Just taking off. You want to get off as much excess as you can. And one thing that's good about this, as it turns out, is that the more you wipe off, the quicker the paint dries. Boom, boom, and then you can go right in with your Mod Podge and seal the deal. So now I'm getting ready to put the pictures on, and that's why I don't glue the whole room box together right away, because sometimes I want to lay it on its side like this to adjust the pictures. And once I get these just right, which ends up taking me a few minutes till I get it till I'm satisfied, centered right above the bench seat. And then you'll notice that I lift it instead of removing the whole thing and gluing it and then trying to stick it back in the exact same spot. I lift half of the picture right here and just stick the glue gun underneath. That way it doesn't move its position really, and I don't have to worry, because the hot glue adheres so quickly. As you know, it's just seconds and it's already done. So anyway, that's my little trick for being able to work with the hot glue gun. That one came out a little crooked, but it seems like it's bending a little bit, so it's all right. It's moving a little bit slightly. I like how this turned out. Now we're going to move on to doing these cute little tables, which I ended up sanding the tops, and I didn't like the tops of these tables at all. So I decided to cover them with the chipboard so that they would match the countertops perfectly. So that's what you're going to see me do here. I'm going to cover each one with the chipboard, because even though I sanded these pretty good, they still had those ripples on the top, and even though that gave them kind of a little bit of character, I just think it looked kind of awkward, so I'm deciding to cover them with the chipboard and continue with that. But then I end up painting the sides a slightly darker brown, which I thought gave it a really good look, and then I add some ribbon at the base to give it some interest and some more texture. And that ribbon I got at Michael's Crafts more recently, so it's still available. So I'm just wiping on a little bit of color here, and I'm going to leave it dark on the edges, lighter on top. I'm going to leave the base kind of light because I like the different color of the wood. And then just glue on this ribbon. And here's the finished look. Thank you so much for watching. As always, click subscribe if you'd like to see more of my videos. Click like if you like this content, and we'll catch you next time. And hopefully you'll stop on by and see how the Renaissance Cafe is going, where I'm going to be putting all of the details into this and finishing it up. See you next time. Bye.